Most people assume loneliness is a weakness. They think those who choose solitude are missing something essential, a life they should be chasing. But the truth is often the opposite. Those who enjoy being alone are quietly mastering the art of seeing the world differently. They're not running from people, they're running toward themselves. When you watch someone sit alone in a cafe, headphones in, notebook open, your first thought might be, why aren't they with friends? Why aren't they socializing? You see emptiness. They see clarity. The world becomes sharper when there is no one else around to dilute your attention. Every detail, every conversation, every subtle change in tone becomes more noticeable. Solitude amplifies perception. It's why they notice things most of us walk past. The hesitation in a stranger's eyes, the pattern of traffic at a quiet intersection, the subtle shift in the air when a storm approaches. This is the psychology of attention at its purest form. Being alone doesn't shrink their world. It expands it. You might wonder why some people crave this state. Part of it is fear, or maybe not fear exactly, but sensitivity. Humans are wired to absorb the emotional energy of those around them. The moods of others aren't just external. They echo in your brain, triggering neural responses, dopamine surges, stress hormones. For someone highly sensitive, social environments can feel like walking through a storm. Solitude is their shelter. And in that shelter, they recalibrate. They understand that emotions are contagious, that your mind is a garden, and you must choose carefully what you allow in. But there's more than safety here. Solitude creates space for self-awareness. People who enjoy being alone become their own mirrors. They ask questions most of us avoid. Who am I when nobody is watching? What do I truly want? Beyond approval, beyond applause. Studies in developmental psychology show that self-reflection, especially when uninterrupted, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, impulse control, and understanding your own thoughts. When you spend time alone, you literally become better at thinking about your thinking. Metacognition becomes a habit. And this is where the world of the solitary begins to diverge from the common path. Social creatures tend to measure themselves externally. Likes, comments, invitations, approval, these are their metrics of success. The solitary mind measures internally. Achievement is no longer a public performance. Happiness is no longer a mirror held up to society. Instead, every decision, every small action is a negotiation with one person, themselves. They learn the subtle art of internal validation. You don't need recognition to feel worthy. You don't need a crowd to feel complete. But this is not to say solitude is effortless. There is a tension in being alone that most people avoid. Loneliness is not the same as solitude. Loneliness hurts. Solitude teaches. The difference is conscious choice. Those who thrive alone have wrestled with the discomfort. They've sat with it, stared at it, questioned it. And through that struggle, they build resilience. Neuroscience shows that moments of controlled stress, when navigated without escape, actually strengthen neural pathways for emotional regulation. Solitude forces your brain to practice handling your own company. You learn to be calm when nobody is watching, to be still when nothing is demanding your attention. Real power is invisible, and solitude is its training ground. There's a subtle elegance to this mindset. Imagine a river flowing through a quiet forest. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't brag about its depth or speed. It simply moves. People who enjoy solitude are like that river. They carry depth in silence. They cultivate skills without fanfare. They learn, they read, they observe. Their lives may appear uneventful from the outside, but inside, a universe is constantly evolving. And yet, society often misunderstands them. Extroverted norms, loud culture, public accolades, these all assume the value of life is measured in visibility. But the solitary know that what is unseen often matters most. They understand that influence is not always loud, that mastery does not need an audience, that insight is richer when forged in privacy. History is full of examples. Scientists who worked in isolated labs, writers who wrote late into the night, artists who created in small rooms with nothing but their imagination. Solitude is the quiet crucible of genius. Curiously, those who enjoy being alone are often misunderstood as antisocial. But antisocial behavior is about disconnection. Solitude is about connection, the deepest kind. Connection with thought, with emotion, with observation. They notice patterns others ignore. They understand cause and effect in human behavior, often before it manifests outwardly. Behavioral science explains that this comes from unbroken observation. Without the constant noise of group dynamics, the brain recognizes subtle cues, microexpressions, tone variations, habitual behaviors. This gives them an almost intuitive understanding of people, without needing to be social constantly. They see what others overlook. But there is a paradox here. While solitude breeds clarity and emotional intelligence, it also demands courage. It is easy to hide behind the company of others, to outsource validation, to avoid self-reflection. Being alone exposes weaknesses, fears, and insecurities. You confront the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. You meet your contradictions. The process is uncomfortable, sometimes painful, but it is transformative. Every moment alone is an experiment in identity formation. Who you are when no one is watching is often the person you were meant to be. And there is a subtle, almost invisible confidence that emerges. You see it in their posture, the calmness in their voice, the deliberate choices in their lives. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't compete for attention. Neuroscience shows that when your dopamine rewards are self-generated through mastery, learning, reflection, you achieve a more sustainable, deeper satisfaction. You are no longer a slave to external stimuli. You are a curator of your own experience. Solitude also sharpens time perception. People who live in constant social validation often lose track of priorities. The mind fragments. In contrast, those who enjoy being alone understand the subtle flow of life. They plan, they execute, they pause. Their productivity is not frantic. It is precise. They are patient. They understand that delayed gratification is not a concept, it is a lifestyle. A study in behavioral psychology demonstrated that individuals who spent more time in reflective solitude exhibited higher impulse control, better goal setting, and greater overall life satisfaction. Time becomes a tool, not a pressure. But the world remains loud, and the solitary must navigate it with care. They have learned that interaction is necessary but selective. They observe energy, they judge compatibility, and they protect their inner state. Social comparison loses its grip. They understand that the average human measures success externally, and they refuse to play by those rules. This is stealth wealth in the emotional sense. Power, confidence, insight, and emotional mastery kept quiet. It is subtle, nearly invisible, and infinitely stronger than any public display. Yet, there is an artistry in how they handle connection. Those who spend most of their time alone often speak less. But when they do, words carry weight. Their silence is not emptiness, it is a canvas. People listen because they are not accustomed to attention being deliberate, measured, thoughtful. Every gesture, every word, every glance has intentionality. This is the psychology of scarcity applied to communication. Attention is precious. Solitude teaches this naturally. And this is where the final paradox emerges. The solitary often crave understanding, yet they fear intrusion. They want depth, but they resist superficiality. Their social interactions are selective, but profoundly rewarding. Neuroscience shows that humans are wired for social reward, but the solitary have refined this circuitry. They know which interactions actually stimulate meaningful dopamine release and which merely create noise. They live in a heightened state of awareness, constantly balancing presence and privacy. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of being alone is what it teaches about freedom. Freedom is often misunderstood as external liberation, money, mobility, choice of residence. But the solitary understand the subtler truth. Freedom is control over your inner landscape. Freedom is the ability to be content, thoughtful, reflective, and purposeful, regardless of external circumstances. Emotional autonomy is the most potent form of freedom, and it is cultivated quietly, moment by moment, in solitude. So the next time you see someone sitting alone, scrolling slowly, taking a quiet walk, or reading late into the night, remember this. They are not lonely. they are awake. They are observing, learning, becoming. They are building a life measured not by applause, but by insight, calm, and internal mastery. Their happiness is self-generated. Their power is quiet. Their vision is deep. And maybe there is a lesson for all of us here. We are addicted to distraction, addicted to noise, addicted to validation we don't need. We forget that life is experienced most fully when we slow down, when we look inward, when we allow ourselves the luxury of being alone with our thoughts. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a mirror. It is a classroom. It is a forge. It reveals who you are and who you might become if you dare to see without distortion. The question is, can you sit with yourself long enough to discover your own depth? Can you resist the pull of applause and fleeting attention? Can you learn to value your own presence above the approval of the crowd? This is the practice that transforms ordinary life into extraordinary awareness. This is the psychology of people who enjoy being alone. They see the world differently because they have first learned to see themselves. And in the stillness, you find something most never do. The quiet certainty that your mind is enough, that your thoughts are enough, that your life is enough not because others say so, but because you finally believe it yourself. The loudest validation is silent. The deepest growth is private. The truest freedom is internal. If you carry even a fraction of this awareness into your own life, you begin to see the world as they dock clearer, sharper, quieter, infinitely more real. Which of these truths resonates with you? Can you embrace your own solitude and discover the vision it offers? Reflect on this, and consider how your next quiet moment might change everything. If this perspective shifted the way you think about life, subscribe for more psychological insights and cinematic reflections.